example, I'm going to the piece that I'm writing now because you know that piece. Writing a big oratorio right now, a big vocal symphony, and it's based on a Renaissance book called Dialogues of Love, which is a philosophy book that discusses love from the earthly desires through how love is in everything around us and up to the transcendental love, spiritual love, and for the greater God. And so everything is now that in my life. I'm just like completely obsessed with this. I thought I would like read the book, which I read in my teenage years, and read it again, find some text, organize the form, and write the piece. That was the plan. I even wrote out that was the plan. But I'm like, months into this piece, and I have no idea what all the text will be. I've read like 1,000 books on the topic of love now. And it's like, it's all I can I'm just like completely all consumed in, how different cultures view love and what is, like I've read all these biological, books on the biology of love. What do we feel when we, it's just been like a complete, not anything like I expected. And I have no idea where it's gonna end. It gets to be a little bit too much. My wife says that I'm in, she calls it in composing mode. And in composing mode essentially means that she can like talk to me about something really important. And there's no way that I remember we've ever had that conversation. I said, oh, you're in composing mode. I'm really a different person when I'm working on this piece. It's just a different, once I get into it, I can be working on it and not really be in it. But then I get into it and it just pulls everything out of me. And so sometimes I will write by hand. Sometimes I will write with a computer. Sometimes I will write walking outside. Sometimes I will write with the piano. Like I do everything. Sometimes I will not listen to music for months. Sometimes I will listen to every piece I can find. So there's nothing in common with like if you look at the day-to-day life. But I would say that one thing in common is just that it just becomes my entire being. Because I just don't know how you can otherwise really do it. It's sort of like, it's a complete reflection of who I am at that point in time. Maybe the other thing in common is that I have set hours of working, which almost sounds like the opposite of what I just said. But if I don't have set hours, then I don't sit it right. I will just like read all these books about it or think about it. So I have to get in like at least 3 hours a day of actual putting notes down. And I strive for 6. And when they're done, I'm just like, okay, that's it. I can't worry about that too much. But those are sort of the two opposites, that I have to sit every day and write something. And then it just becomes this all-encompassing obsession. Until the piece is, well, I wouldn't say until the piece is done, but until the deadline arrives. And then it's all over. Some journalists often ask me, how do you know that a piece is done? And my answer is, when I'm dead, it's done. But when the deadline arrives, and my publisher calls, how many of you know Paul's daughter, Katie? It's Katie. She calls and she says, where's the piece? And that's it. And it's all over.
This artistic end of things, this obsession, as Avner termed it, I actually sort of understand. And most of you, some of you may know that Avner also conducts as well. He has a chamber ensemble in Cleveland that he's, the name of the ensemble is City Music Cleveland. And so it's fascinating to hear about this obsessive element, because I think as conductors, we're always trying to not only get at the intentions of the composer, but we're really, in a sense, trying to become the composer, trying to become as one. Bernstein used to say, or used to think when he was conducting Mahler, that he actually became Mahler for a while. And so this sort of immersion, I think, is a very important part of the artistic process. And I think, and obviously for a composer such as Avner, but also I think for conductors too, I think that immersion, that obsession is part of, perhaps what leads us to the final product. The process of working on a world premiere is unique in itself, I think. And just so you know a bit about what the process is for the orchestra, we have 4 rehearsals for this Masterworks program, which you'll hear tomorrow night. The first rehearsal was last night. Avner now joins us for the final 3 rehearsals, 2 today and 1 tomorrow. And it's great to have the composer here because we can ask all sorts of questions and clarify intentions if need be. But talk about, from your perspective, what it's like. Talk about the process, and also, hearing a work which you've written come to life. Talk about what that's like.
So, I would say that it's I experience it as an out-of-body experience. How people say, like, people who have almost died and they saw themselves from outside and then they came back to their body. Because this thing has lived in your head for so long, and essentially has been your life for so long. So if you think about it, I'm obsessed about a piece for 8 months, and that piece is my life for 8 months. And then I finish it, and then my publisher copies it and makes the parts, and then some time goes by, and the conductor studies it, and someone does the well-being, the whatnot. 6 months later, I come to this place. What's amazing about orchestra music, if you think about it, can you imagine a play being put on with 4 rehearsals? Orchestra music can be put on with 1 rehearsal, not at the world premiere, but a lot of times you come and the reading is the piece. That's it. So there's something almost, I think it's one of the most complex human activities that is so easily reproduced in another place with another group of people. I can't think of another activity that is so complex, and yet the orchestra just gets it right away. And so you get there, and suddenly this thing that has been this, like a part of your body, is just out there. It's just out there, and is alive. And other people are making it happen. And other people have opinions about it, and other people are asking questions about it. And I'm almost always a little bit cautious, because the first time that I hear it, or maybe tonight's rehearsal, the first rehearsal, I almost need to get used to it, that it's outside of me. It's like, why is this thing outside? Why is it not here? It's really odd. It's really odd. It's really, I don't know what would be, I think maybe women feel a similar feeling after they give birth. And suddenly this child that was part of it, I remember with my wife that when our daughter was born, I think she almost missed some of this. It was odd, I think, for her, and I don't know, maybe that's the way it is. But that's a little bit how I feel, this thing that's been mine and only mine is now alive in the world. People play it, and there's concerts, applause, people don't applaud, the critic says this, the critic says that, someone says that, I hear something. It's suddenly everybody's. And it's a very strange, obviously I want it to be as close to what I heard in my head. But I always feel like I have to be cautious, not to try to get it too similar to what was in my head. Because it will never actually be like what, it's now something else. It has its own life. And I think it's easiest for me to see the differences in tempos. When we talk about tempo, I usually write tempos that are not practical. They're too fast. And part of it, a lot of composers do that. Schumann, Beethoven. It's like a common thing that composers write numbers that are as a conductor, you look at them, you're like, I'm going to conduct Beethoven 1, last movement, you look at the number that he wrote, and it's like, no way this is going to happen. I like it in my head, but it's not going to happen. And that's part of the thing that, very often I will revise my tempos after a few performances of the piece, because I learned that the piece can't live in this tempo that's in my head. You know how, like, if you imagine yourself like, oh, what if there was a fire in the building and you had to run outside? You can imagine yourself running really fast. And can you really run that fast? So even if there's a fire, would you really be, like, there's just things that, and that's what I feel about premieres, like, and it's hard sometimes, I'm glad you asked this, because it's hard sometimes to get it across to musicians, because they're like, oh no, we want it to be exactly the way you wanted it. And I'm like, yeah, it's never going to be exactly the way I wanted it. Like, I put the note down, it's already not exactly what I heard. Now you're playing the note, it's like two levels removed from my original idea, just by necessity. There's just no way around it. It's never going to be exactly, and that's not the point. The point is that it's something that has a life.